Baba Vanga warned of alien invasion before 2025 ends prayer for protection today. If you've spent any time online recently, navigating the quiet currents of the internet, you may have heard the whispers. It's a story that seems to surface when the world feels a little uncertain, a little unsettled. It's a prophecy attributed to the blind Bulgarian mystic known as Baba Vanga, and it carries a chilling message for our time. The story claims that before the year 2025 comes to a close, humanity will face a trial brought by visitors from beyond the stars. It's a dramatic tale filled with mystery and a sense of cosmic destiny. But let's pause for a moment. Let's take a breath and ground ourselves in the here and now, because here we are, living and breathing in the year 2025. You're listening to my voice, perhaps in your car or at home, looking out a window at a familiar sky. So, the question that hangs in the air is a simple one. What is the truth? The short answer, and the one grounded in our shared reality, is that our skies remain peaceful. Astronomers, the dedicated watchers of our heavens, are not sounding alarms of an impending invasion. There are no fleets gathering at the edge of our solar system. Life, in all its beautiful and complicated reality, continues as it was. And yet, the story persists. The whisper refuses to fade. This tells us something profound. It tells us that the power of this prophecy isn't really about aliens or invading ships. Its true power lies in what it reflects back at us about our own time and about ourselves. The most interesting question isn't if the prophecy is true, but why it resonates so deeply with so many of us right now. To understand that, to truly grasp the heart of this modern legend, we must first take a journey. We must travel back in time and across the world to a small, humble village in Bulgaria and meet the woman behind the whispers. The woman behind the legend. Who was Baba Vanga? Our journey takes us to what was then the Kingdom of Bulgaria in the year 1911. In a small village, a premature baby girl was born into a life of hardship. Her name was Vangelia Gushtarova. We know her today as Baba Vanga. Her early life was unremarkable, etched by the poverty and struggle common to the region at that time. She was, by all accounts, an ordinary child with a fondness for playing games of healing and pretending to be a doctor. But her world and the course of her life was irrevocably changed when she was just a young girl. The story, which has now become the bedrock of her legend, is as dramatic as any ancient myth. A powerful storm, a freak tornado, some accounts say, swept through her village. The sky turned dark, and a violent wind lifted the young Vangelia from the ground and tossed her into a nearby field. When her family finally found her, she was terrified and in agony, her eyes sealed shut, crusted over with a thick layer of dust and dirt. Despite what little medical care her family could afford, the damage was permanent. Her sight was gone. The darkness that took her sight, they say, gave her a different kind of vision. It didn't happen overnight. It began with dreams, unsettlingly vivid dreams that seemed to foretell events in her village. Then came the voices, whispers that she claimed guided her. Slowly, word began to spread among her neighbors. Vangelia, the blind girl, seemed to know things she shouldn't. She could locate lost livestock, foresee a coming harvest's success or failure, or offer comfort by describing the presence of a departed loved one. As the years went by, her reputation grew beyond the confines of her small village. The name Baba Vanga, which translates to Grandmother Vanga, became a term of endearment and deep respect. She lived a life utterly devoid of material wealth, in a modest home in the Rupite area, a place she considered sacred and energetically charged. Yet, kings and commoners alike made the pilgrimage to her door. In photographs from that time, you can see them long lines of people standing patiently, waiting for a few moments with her. They were mothers worried about sick children, soldiers heading to the front lines, farmers facing drought, and even, it is said, the high-ranking officials from the Bulgarian government and the wider Soviet bloc. They didn't come to see her sightless eyes, but to hear the words that flowed from her, words that were often cryptic, delivered in a thick local dialect, but which seemed to carry the weight of an undeniable truth for those who sought her counsel. She became a state-supported prophet, a national oracle, whose fame was a unique blend of folk mysticism and political utility. The stories that cemented her legend on the world stage are the ones that echo on the internet today. History, some say, has confirmed her visions with chilling accuracy. It's told that she foresaw the Chernobyl disaster, not by name, but by describing a great shadow falling over humanity, caused by the breath of the earth. She is said to have warned about the sinking of the Russian submarine Kursk, speaking of it being covered with water and the whole world weeping over it. And most famously, of course, is the prophecy attributed to her concerning the 11th of September attacks. The legend claims she warned, "Horror, horror! The American brethren will fall after being attacked by the steel birds." At the time, if she did say it, the words would have been baffling. Decades later, the imagery is haunting. Yet, here we must pause and introduce a crucial element of scholarly skepticism. For every fulfilled prophecy attached to her name, there are countless others that are either too vague to verify or have simply failed to come to pass. More importantly, it is crucial to note that many of these most specific accounts were published posthumously, long after she had passed away in 1996. Their exact wording, the context in which they were spoken, and who first recorded them are often subjects of intense debate. This ambiguity is the fertile ground in which legends grow, and this leads us to the central, unavoidable problem when trying to understand the truth of Baba Vanga. She was illiterate and left behind not a single written word. Everything we think we know about her prophecies comes to us second-hand, filtered through the memory, interpretation, and sometimes the agenda of those who listened to her. Think of it like a game of telephone played out over decades. Baba Vanga would speak in her difficult dialect, an assistant would interpret and write it down. That person might tell another, and years later, that story gets retold and published. With each step, the original message can be subtly or significantly altered, polished to better fit an event that has already happened. And so, we are left with a fascinating, complex historical figure, shrouded in mystery. Was she a true seer, a conduit for information beyond our understanding? Or was she a profoundly intuitive and wise woman, deeply connected to the anxieties of her people, whose vague pronouncements were later shaped by others to fit the great and terrible events of history? The truth may be lost to time. We may never be able to separate the woman, Vangelia Gushterova, from the legend of Baba Vanga. But the power of her story endures, not because of what she may or may not have predicted, but because it speaks to a timeless human need, the desire to find meaning in chaos, and to believe that someone, somewhere, can see the path ahead. Deconstructing the prophecy, to serve or to perish. So, with a clearer picture of the woman behind the legend, let's now turn our attention to the specific prophecy that has brought us here today. Among the many predictions attributed to Baba Vanga, this is perhaps one of the most dramatic and unsettling. It speaks directly to a deep-seated human curiosity and fear, the question of whether we are alone in the universe and what might happen if we are not. Like all of her prophecies, this one comes to us without a verifiable source, passed down through accounts and online retellings. The story goes that she whispered of a time, before the year 2025 comes to a close, when a star from afar will awaken the earth. She allegedly continued with a phrase that is both stark and profoundly enigmatic. They will not come with peace. but with a choice, to serve or to perish. Let's pause on those words. Let's take them apart, not as a literal forecast of the future, but as a piece of powerful symbolic language. The first image, a star from afar, is evocative. It speaks of something outside our context, a visitor that does not belong to our solar system. It's an ancient symbol, really. Throughout human history, wandering stars, comets, meteors have been seen as omens, as messengers of great change. So, this first part sets the stage for a monumental event. But it's the second part that truly commands our attention. They will not come with peace, but with a choice. This is not the language of a simple alien invasion movie with lasers and explosions. The typical Hollywood narrative is one of conquest, a clear-cut battle between good and evil. But this is different. The absence of peace doesn't automatically mean war. Instead, it is replaced by something far more complex, a choice. This suggests a moral or existential test. It frames the encounter not as a physical battle, but as a spiritual or civilizational crossroads. It implies that the outcome rests not just on the power of the visitors, but on the response of humanity itself. And what a choice it is, to serve or to perish. Let's first consider the word serve. Our immediate, almost instinctual reaction to that word is negative. It brings to mind enslavement, subjugation, the loss of our freedom and autonomy. It's a terrifying prospect, humanity brought to its knees, forced to obey a superior power. And in a world where we value our independence so highly, this is a deeply unsettling idea. But could serve mean something else entirely? What if it's not about serving a master, but about serving a principle? Think of how we use the word in other contexts. We speak of serving justice, serving the truth, or serving a higher purpose. In this light, the choice could be a call to abandon our own self-serving habits, our greed, our conflicts, our tribalism, and align ourselves with a greater, more universal law. What if serving means accepting our role as caretakers of this planet and as members of a larger cosmic community? It would still mean giving something up, our arrogance, perhaps, but it would be a transformation, not a subjugation. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. To perish. Again, the literal interpretation is stark and horrifying. It means physical annihilation, extinction, the end of the human story. It's a vision of utter and complete destruction, a final judgment from which there is no appeal. But what if perish also has a deeper, more symbolic meaning? What if it's not the human species that is meant to perish, but our old way of life? Perhaps it means the perishing of our illusions, the illusion that we are the center of the universe, the illusion that we can continue on our destructive path without consequence. It could mean the death of our ignorance, the end of our divisions, the collapse of systems that are built on exploitation and inequality. In this sense, perishing would be a painful, wrenching process, an end to the world as we know it. But it could also be a necessary clearing of the ground for something new to grow. When we look at the prophecy through this lens, it changes completely. It's no longer just a warning about an alien fleet. It becomes a profound philosophical question. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the visitors. What if the visitors are not beings in silver ships, but a revelation? A truth so profound, so undeniable, that it forces humanity to make a choice about its own future. Imagine if tomorrow we received irrefutable proof that we are not alone. That simple fact alone would be a visitor. It would invade every aspect of our culture, our religion, our science, and our politics. It would hold up a giant mirror to us. And faced with that mirror, we would be forced to choose. Do we unite as a species, finally serving the common good of humanity? Or do we continue to squabble and fight amongst ourselves and ultimately perish in our own disunity? Seen this way, the prophecy isn't about what might come from the sky. It's about what is already inside of us. It is a powerful metaphor for the ultimate test that every civilization must eventually face, the choice to evolve or to dissolve. If you're still watching, you were meant to hear this message. Baba Vanga's visions were never random, they're spiritual wake-up calls. Type "I am awake" in the comments if you believe in preparing your soul for what's to come. Stay until the very end to discover what might prepare humanity for what's coming. When legend meets astronomy, the tale of three eye divided by Atlas. For decades, Baba Vanga's alleged prophecy about a star from afar remained just that, a piece of folklore, a cryptic whisper with no tangible connection to our reality. It was a story you could easily dismiss, but then, as if on cue from a cosmic playwright, modern astronomy presented a candidate. A real, observable object appeared in our skies that fit the description with an eerie precision. An object named 3I divided by Atlas. The name itself sounds like something from a science fiction novel, but the designation is purely scientific. The I stands for interstellar, and the 3 means it is the third such object ever confirmed by humanity. For most of our history, we believed that everything in our sky, every planet, asteroid, and comet, was a member of our own solar family, gravitationally bound to our Sunday. They were locals. But in recent years, our telescopes have become powerful enough to spot the tourists' visitors from the vast, dark ocean between the stars. The first was a strange cigar-shaped object named Oumuamua, which tumbled past us in 2017. The second was a more comet-like visitor named 2I divided by Borisov. And then came 3I divided by Atlas. So, what exactly is it? Scientists tell us that 3I divided by Atlas is an interstellar comet. Imagine a snowball, not made of water, but of frozen gases, dust, and rock, hurled out of another star system countless eons ago. It has been traveling through the void, in the cold and the dark, for millions, perhaps billions of years. And now, its long journey has brought it on a brief, fleeting tour through our cosmic neighborhood. It's moving at an incredible speed, a velocity so high that it's clearly not a prisoner of our sun's gravity. Like a ship passing in the night, it will greet us from a distance and then continue on its path, eventually leaving our solar system to wander the galaxy once more. Its appearance in late 2025 is a rare and genuinely exciting opportunity for science. By studying the light that reflects off it, by analyzing the tail of gas and dust it leaves behind, astronomers can learn about the chemistry of the star system where it was born. It's like receiving a postcard from an unknown country. Every piece of data is a clue about how other solar systems might be formed and what they might be made of. Now, it is crucial to state this with absolute clarity. 3I divided by Atlas poses no threat to Earth. It is not on a collision course. It will not even come particularly close to us. At its nearest point, it will be well over 150 million miles away. To put that in perspective, that's significantly farther away from us than the Sun Island. It is, for all intents and purposes, a distant spectacle, a beautiful and scientifically valuable event happening in our cosmic backyard, but not on our doorstep. And yet, the story of 3I divided by Atlas has a fascinating twist. While the vast majority of astronomers agree it is a natural comet, it does have some peculiar features. For instance, studies have suggested it has an unusual chemical makeup, different from the comets native to our own solar system. This, of course, is what we would expect from a foreign visitor. But these kinds of anomalies have led some to ask more provocative questions. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb has famously suggested that some of these interstellar objects, particularly the first one, Oumuamua, which accelerated in ways that were hard to explain, could be signs of extraterrestrial technology. He has theorized that it might have been a probe, a piece of a solar sail, or some other artificial object, our first real contact with technology from another civilization. It's a bold and fascinating idea that pushes the boundaries of science and our imagination. Professor Loeb argues that we should be more open to considering extraordinary possibilities when faced with extraordinary evidence. His perspective has ignited a healthy and important debate within the scientific community. However, it is equally important to understand that this remains a minority view. Most of the scientific community believes that nature is simply more complex and surprising than we once imagined. They argue that the strange behaviors of these interstellar visitors can likely be explained by natural processes we just don't fully understand yet. Perhaps interstellar comets are just built differently than our own. Perhaps they interact with sunlight in ways we haven't predicted. Science, after all, advances by observing anomalies and finding new explanations for them. The goal is not to jump to the most sensational conclusion, but to patiently gather evidence until the most likely one reveals itself. So, here we have this perfect intersection of legend and reality. On one hand, an ancient, unverified prophecy of a star from afar. On the other, a real, scientifically observed interstellar comet arriving at the appointed time. It is a coincidence so potent that it's almost impossible to ignore. It captures our imagination because it feels like the universe is telling us a story. But the story science tells is one of cosmic grandeur and natural wonder, not of impending doom. It reminds us that the universe is not a static, empty place, but a dynamic and interconnected galaxy, where pieces of distant star systems can, and do, visit our own. 3 I divided by Atlas is not a harbinger of a coming trial. Rather, it is a messenger that has already delivered its primary message, that we are part of something immeasurably vast, wonderfully strange, and still full of mysteries waiting to be solved. A mirror to our times. Why are we listening? So let's bring all these threads together. We have a prophecy from a blind mystic that has no written proof. We have an interstellar comet that, while fascinating, is scientifically harmless. We've deconstructed the words and found they could be more symbolic than literal. Logically, it seems we should be able to file this whole story away under interesting folklore and move on with our lives. But we can't, can we? There's a reason this story has taken hold. There's a reason it gets shared in quiet corners of the internet, and a reason you are listening to this right now. If the prophecy is unverified and the comet is harmless, why can't we look away? The answer, perhaps, has less to do with the stars and more to do with ourselves. It has to do with the world we see when we look out our windows in the year 2025. We are listening to this story because it speaks to a feeling that many of us share, a quiet hum of unease that runs beneath the surface of our daily lives. We live in an age of profound anxiety. Think about it. We turn on the news and we see nations on the brink of conflict, old tensions flaring up in new and dangerous ways. The language of diplomacy feels strained, and the drums of war feel closer than they have in a generation. There's a fragility to the peace we once took for granted. We look at the world around us, and we feel the earth groaning under the weight of a changing climate. We see headlines about record temperatures, unprecedented storms, and ecosystems in distress. There's a sense that the very ground beneath our feet is becoming less stable, less predictable. We are living through a slow-motion crisis that science has warned us about for decades, and the consequences are no longer abstract. And then there's the technological frontier. We watch as artificial intelligence evolves at a speed that outpaces our wisdom. It promises incredible advancements, but it also whispers of unforeseen disruptions to our jobs, our societies, and even our understanding of what it means to be human. We are creating tools with the power of gods, while still wrestling with our most basic human flaws. We feel it in our communities too, a growing sense of division, of polarization. It feels harder to have a simple conversation about difficult topics. We are more connected than ever by technology, but many of us feel more isolated than ever in spirit. We scroll through endless feeds, but we long for genuine connection. In such times, a story of a great trial from the heavens doesn't sound so far-fetched, does it? It feels like a metaphor for the trials we are already facing right here on Earth. The story of an outside force coming to judge humanity resonates because, on some level, many of us feel that a reckoning is overdue. We sense that the path we are on is unsustainable and that something, eventually, has to give. This is why Baba Vanga's story has such power in 2025. It acts as a giant mirror. It takes all of our free-floating anxieties, our fears about war, climate, technology, and social decay, and it gives them a single dramatic form, a visitor from the stars. It's easier, in a way, to contemplate a threat from outside than it is to confront the uncomfortable truth that most of our problems are self-inflicted. And perhaps this is the deepest way to understand the prophecy. Perhaps the alien invasion is not from space, but from within. It is the invasion of truths we have tried to ignore. It's the dawning realization that our actions have consequences that we can no longer outrun. The awakening that the star from afar is supposed to trigger isn't caused by a comet, but by the accumulated weight of our own choices finally reaching a tipping point. And what of that stark choice? To serve or to perish? Maybe the choice is not one that will be presented to us by aliens, but one we present to ourselves every single day. Do we serve our shared humanity? Do we serve the health of our one and only planet? Do we serve the future of our children? Do we serve the better angels of our nature, our capacity for compassion, for cooperation, for wisdom? Or do we perish? Do we perish in our petty divisions, our endless cycles of conflict, our insatiable greed? Do we allow our civilization to slowly unravel because we could not find the collective will to change course? When you see it this way, the prophecy is no longer a passive prediction of what will happen to us. It becomes an active challenge for us. It's a call to action, disguised as a tale of cosmic doom. It's asking us to look at the world we have made and decide, right now, what we are going to do about it. The urgency in the story doesn't come from a celestial timetable, but from the very real and pressing crises of our time. So, we listen. We listen because the story, whether true or not, speaks a deeper truth. It gives voice to our fears, but it also, perhaps, points toward our only hope, the possibility that a great trial could lead to a great transformation. The idea that, faced with a choice of such magnitude, humanity might finally choose to serve something greater than itself. And so, we've reached the end of the first part of our journey together. We've journeyed from a small, humble Bulgarian village to the vastness of interstellar space. We've listened to the echoes of a mysterious prophecy and watched as a real celestial visitor crossed our skies. Most importantly, we've seen how a legend can act as a powerful mirror, reflecting our own deepest fears and our most profound hopes in this complex modern age. But this conversation doesn't end here. It's not meant to be a monologue, but the start of a shared reflection. I truly want to know what you think. What does this story mean to you? When you hear these things, what feelings or thoughts come up? Do you see these prophecies as literal warnings, as powerful metaphors for our times, or simply as fascinating tales that reveal the enduring nature of human belief? Please, take a moment and share your thoughts in the comments below. There are no right or wrong answers here. Your perspective is a valuable and welcome part of this shared exploration. In the next part, we will turn from these large global questions to a more personal and intimate one. In the face of uncertainty, whether it comes from the stars or from the headlines in our own world, how can we find and protect a sense of inner peace? How do we build a sanctuary inside ourselves that can withstand the storms outside? we will explore the quiet, steadying power of prayer and reflection. I hope you'll join me. The Inner Sanctuary, a prayer for protection in uncertain times. In the first part of our journey, we explored the echoes of a haunting prophecy and stared together into the vast, mysterious cosmos. We walked through the life of a blind mystic and watched as her legend intersected with the real, observable universe. It is only natural if such stories, with their weight of history and their cosmic scale, leave behind a residue of unease. It's that quiet question that can linger in the back of our minds long after the story is over. What if? That question, what if, is a powerful one. It's the seed of both our greatest creativity and our deepest anxieties. It's human to feel a tremor of uncertainty when we contemplate the great unknowns. Our minds are designed to pay attention to potential threats, to map out the darkness, and stories like Baba Vanga's tap into that ancient, primal part of ourselves that looks up at the night sky and wonders what's looking back. So, if you feel that quiet stirring, that faint sense of disquiet, know that you are not alone. It's a shared human response to a world that is, and always has been, profoundly unpredictable. But the most important question isn't whether we feel that unease. The most important question is what we do with it. How do we live our lives, full of hope and purpose, while acknowledging the great mysteries we cannot control? How do we navigate a world of constant change and often frightening news without letting the what-ifs rob us of the peace that is available to us right here, right now? This is where our journey together takes a turn. We are going to shift our gaze from the distant heavens to the intimate landscape of our own inner world. Because while we cannot command the stars or predict the future, we have a profound and often underestimated power to cultivate our own inner state. We have the ability to build a place of refuge within ourselves, a sanctuary that no amount of external chaos can breach. And so, we arrive at the heart of our title today, Prayer for Protection Today. But this is not about praying against spaceships or shadowy figures from the stars. It is about a protection far more intimate and far more powerful. It is about protecting our peace. It's about protecting our hope when the world gives us reasons to despair. It is about protecting our very humanity, our capacity for kindness, for empathy, for grace, in a world that seems determined to challenge them at every turn. True protection is not a wall that keeps the world out. It is a foundation that keeps us steady in the world. It's the strength to remain calm in the midst of a storm, to think clearly when others are panicking, and to act from a place of love when the world is preaching fear. This is not a passive wish for safety. It is the active, conscious, and courageous work of building a resilient spirit. Let us now explore how to build that inner sanctuary, brick by brick. Let us discover how, through the simple and timeless practices of reflection and intention, we can create an unshakable shelter for our soul. Redefining protection. What are we truly seeking shelter from? To begin this work, we must start with a moment of honest diagnosis. Before we can pray for protection, we must first ask ourselves a fundamental question. What are we truly protecting ourselves from? The visitors Baba Vanga spoke of may be a compelling metaphor, but the invaders of our peace, the ones we contend with every single day, are not hypothetical. They are very real. They don't arrive in spaceships. They arrive through the screens in our hands and the speakers in our homes. They are the subtle, persistent forces that chip away at our tranquility, our clarity, and our sense of well-being. Let's name them so we can understand them. The first invader is the sheer, overwhelming deluge of information. Never before in human history have we been subjected to such a relentless, 24-hour cascade of data, opinions, alerts, and updates. It's like trying to take a sip of water from a fire hose. We are expected to have an opinion on every global crisis, to keep up with every trend, to process a volume of information in a single day that our ancestors might not have encountered in a year. The silent cost of this is exhaustion. Our mental energy is a finite resource, and this constant bombardment depletes it. It shatters our attention into 1,000 tiny fragments, making deep thought and quiet contemplation feel like impossible luxuries. It creates a low-grade, persistent hum of agitation in our nervous system, a feeling that we are always behind, always missing something. This isn't a state of peace, it's a state of perpetual, low-level alert. We are saturated, and in our saturation, we become vulnerable. This vulnerability leads us directly to the second invader, the economy of fear. It's important to understand that much of the information we consume is not designed to inform us. It is designed to agitate us. Fear and outrage are powerful currencies in the modern media landscape. They generate clicks, they capture attention, they sell products, and they fuel political campaigns. The old newsroom adage, "If it bleeds, it leads," has been amplified to a global scale. The result is that we are fed a steady diet of our worst-case scenarios. The world that is presented to us through our screens is often a caricature of reality, a world that seems more violent, more dangerous, and more hopeless than it actually is. This constant exposure to threat, real or perceived, hijacks our physiology. It keeps our bodies in a state of fight or flight, flooding us with stress hormones. It makes us feel powerless, anxious, and suspicious. We begin to see threats where there is only difference, and to view the world not with wonder, but with a sense of dread. This is not just an invasion of our minds, it is an invasion of our bodies. When a society is saturated with information and marinated in fear, the third invader finds fertile ground: social polarization. The same forces that profit from our fear also profit from our division. Algorithms are designed to show us content that confirms our biases and demonizes those who think differently. We are digitally sorted into tribes and encouraged to see our fellow citizens not as neighbors with different perspectives, but as enemies with malicious intent. The civility and grace required for a healthy society begin to erode. Conversations become arguments, debates become battles. Invisible walls rise up between friends, family members, and communities. This is a profound spiritual wound. We are social creatures who are wired for connection and belonging. When we are taught to fear and distrust one another, we are cut off from a fundamental source of our strength and our joy. The sense of a shared us begins to dissolve, replaced by a fractured landscape of us versus them. And this leads, inevitably, to the fourth invader, perhaps the most silent and painful of all, a deep and pervasive loneliness. This is the great paradox of our time. We have never been more technologically connected, yet many of us have never felt more emotionally adrift. We can have hundreds of friends online, but no one to call in a moment of crisis. This isn't just about being alone, it's about feeling unseen, unheard, and misunderstood in a crowded world. It's the ache of disconnection that comes from living behind screens, from the erosion of real community, and from a culture that often values performance over presence. This loneliness is more than just sadness. It is a genuine threat to our well-being, an inner emptiness that no amount of external distraction can fill. So when we speak of protection, this is what we are talking about. We are seeking shelter from the psychic exhaustion of information overload. We are seeking refuge from the anxiety stoked by a culture of fear. We are seeking a truce in the exhausting wars of social division, and we are seeking a remedy for the deep ache of loneliness. The most profound protection we can seek, then, is not a shield against the unknown, but a filter for the known. It is not about building walls to keep out imaginary threats, but about learning to tend to the garden of our own inner world. It is the ability to stand firm amidst the storm of noise, to guard the gates of our own mind, and to consciously choose what we allow to take root in our soul. This is a skill, it is a practice, and it is the foundation of a truly resilient and peaceful life. The universal language of the soul, the nature of prayer and stillness. So, having named these modern invaders of our peace, the overload, the fear, the division, the loneliness, we must now ask, what is our shield? What is the practice that allows us to build that inner sanctuary we spoke of? The word I'm going to use is prayer. And I want to pause here for a moment, because for many people, that word comes with a great deal of history. For some, it is a word of deep comfort, tied to a specific faith, a cherished community, and a personal relationship with God. For others, it may feel exclusive, a word that belongs to a club they are not a part of, or one that brings up complicated memories. I want to invite you, just for our time together here, to hold that word gently. We are going to explore it in its widest, most universal sense. We are going to look at the deep human impulse that lies beneath the specific rituals and doctrines of any single tradition. Because when we do, we discover that this act of turning inward, of reaching for connection, is one of the most fundamentally human things we do. It is a language that every soul, in its own way, knows how to speak. Think about it. This impulse is woven into the very fabric of our history. Our ancient ancestors, huddled around a fire, looked up at the vast, star-dusted canopy of the night sky and felt a sense of awe, a sense of wonder, a feeling of being a small part of something immeasurably vast. That feeling of awe, that moment of silent contemplation, was a form of prayer. A musician, lost in the flow of a composition, connecting with a melody that seems to come from somewhere beyond them, that is a form of prayer. A scientist, peering through a microscope or a telescope, suddenly grasping a new and elegant truth about the universe and feeling a thrill of discovery, that is a form of prayer. An artist, facing a blank canvas and reaching for an image that exists only in their mind's eye, is engaged in a dialogue with the unknown. That too is a form of prayer. You do not need a church, a temple, or a specific creed to practice this form of protection. Prayer, in its purest form, is intention. It is the act of consciously and deliberately turning your attention away from the chaos outside and toward the quiet center within. It can take countless forms. It can be a heartfelt, whispered conversation with God, sharing your hopes and your fears as you would with a trusted friend. It can be a silent meditation, focusing only on the simple, steady rhythm of your own breathing. It can be the gentle repetition of a single word or phrase that brings you comfort, words like peace, love, or calm. It can be the simple act of sitting in nature, on a park bench or by a stream, and just noticing the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of the wind in the trees, the intricate design of a single leaf. And in that noticing, feeling a sense of connection, a sense of gratitude for the gift of being alive, that is a profound prayer. This is not just a poetic idea, it is a truth that modern science is beginning to catch up with, confirming the wisdom that mystics and contemplative traditions have known for centuries. Studies are now showing us, in the language of data and brain scans, what happens when we engage in these practices. They show that regular meditation or prayer can literally change the structure and function of our brains. It can calm the activity in our amygdala, the brain's fear center. It can strengthen the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for focus, emotional regulation, and wise decision-making. It can lower stress hormones like cortisol, reduce blood pressure, and even boost our immune systems. But beyond the physical benefits, this practice does something more profound. It changes our relationship with the world. The goal of this kind of prayer isn't necessarily to change our external circumstances. It's not about asking for the storm to stop. It's about becoming the calm, steady center within the storm. It's about cultivating an inner anchor that holds you fast, no matter how fiercely the winds of life may blow. When we regularly create these moments of stillness, we are clearing the fog. We begin to untangle ourselves from the knee-jerk reactions of fear and anger that are so often triggered by the outside world. We create a small, sacred space between a stimulus and our response. And in that space lies our freedom, the freedom to choose how we will show up, the freedom to respond with wisdom instead of reactivity, with compassion instead of judgment. It is the universal human impulse to look up from the well-trodden, busy path of our daily lives and ask, is there more than this? Is there a deeper reality, a quieter truth beneath all the noise? This act of asking, this moment of reaching for something more, is itself a prayer. It is the beginning of finding our way back home to ourselves. It is the universal language of the soul, and it is available to every single one of us at any moment, simply by choosing to turn our attention inward. The pillars of inner protection, 4 prayers for our time. Now, let us move from the abstract to the practical. If prayer and reflection are the tools we use to build our inner sanctuary, what does that construction look like? How do we apply this practice to the specific challenges we identified earlier? I want to offer a framework for this practice, built around 4 pillars of inner protection. Think of them as 4 foundational intentions, 4 prayers, if you will, specifically designed for the unique pressures of our time. Each one is a direct response to one of the modern invaders of our peace. You can use one or all of them. You can say them in the morning to set the tone for your day, or in the evening to find closure. The words themselves are just a starting point. The real power is in the quiet intention you bring to them. So, if you are able, I invite you to find a comfortable position. You don't need to close your eyes unless you want to. Simply take a slow, gentle breath, in and out. Let's begin. The first pillar, a prayer for clarity. Our first pillar is a direct antidote to the invader of information overload and confusion. In a world that is constantly shouting for our attention, clarity is not a given, it is a discipline. It is the practice of intentionally clearing a space in our own minds so that we can hear our own inner wisdom above the external noise. It's about choosing to be the lighthouse, not the storm-tossed ship. This practice is about giving ourselves permission to not know everything, to not have an immediate opinion on every issue. It's about trusting that if something is truly important, it will find its way to us without our frantic searching. It's about reclaiming our most precious resource, our attention. When we practice clarity, we are making a conscious choice to curate what we allow into our minds, just as we would curate the food we put into our bodies. We are choosing mental nourishment over mental junk food. So, let's hold this intention in our minds. Let's form a prayer for clarity. May I have the wisdom to discern truth from noise, to separate the signal from the static. May I find the courage to disconnect, to consciously create moments of silence in my day, knowing that in the quiet, my own thoughts can finally be heard. May I release the frantic need to keep up, and instead cultivate a deep and trusting presence in the here and now. Let my mind become like a still, clear pool of water, reflecting what is real and true, rather than a turbulent sea tossed by the endless winds of opinion. Grant me the peace that comes not from knowing everything, but from being okay with not knowing, and trusting the wisdom that unfolds in its own time. That is the first pillar, a prayer for clarity. You can practice it anytime you feel overwhelmed, anytime the world feels too loud. It is your anchor in the storm of information. The second pillar, a prayer for courage. Our second pillar is the antidote to the invader of fear. We live in a world that often uses fear as a tool to control, to persuade, to sell. We are constantly warned of what might go wrong, of the dangers that lurk around the corner, of the uncertain future. If we are not careful, this constant undercurrent of fear can paralyze us, making us smaller, more hesitant, and less open to the beauty and possibility of life. A prayer for courage is not about pretending that fear doesn't exist. Fear is a natural human emotion. It is a part of our survival instinct. True courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in spite of it. It is the decision to let our hopes, not our fears, be the primary driver of our choices. This practice is about remembering our own strength. It's about looking back at our lives and acknowledging the countless challenges we have already overcome, the storms we have already weathered. It is about connecting with a source of resilience that is deeper than any single worry. It is about choosing to trust in our ability to handle whatever comes next, one day at a time. Let's now hold this intention. Let's form a prayer for courage. Grant me not the absence of fear, but the strength to move forward, even when my heart is trembling. When I am overwhelmed by the what-ifs of the future, help me to gently return to the solid ground of this present moment. May I remember my own resilience. May I honor the storms I have already weathered and trust in the quiet strength they have built within me. Let my heart be a steady flame, providing warmth and light in moments of darkness, not only for myself, but for those around me who may be lost in their own fear. May I choose love as my guide, and may I walk my path with a quiet dignity, knowing that courage is not a roar, but the quiet voice at the end of the day that says, "I will try again tomorrow." That is the second pillar, a prayer for courage. It is your shield against the anxieties of the unknown and a reminder of the powerful, resilient spirit that already resides within you. The third pillar, a prayer for compassion. Our third pillar stands in direct opposition to the invader of division and anger. We live in a time of sharp edges and high walls. It is becoming increasingly easy to see the world in terms of us versus them, to reduce people to labels, and to forget the shared humanity that connects us all. Anger can feel righteous, but it is a fire that, left unchecked, consumes everything in its path, including our own peace. Compassion is the water that soothes that fire. It is not agreement. It is not condoning harmful actions. It is the radical act of choosing to see the human being behind the opinion, behind the label. It is the recognition that every person we meet is fighting a hard battle, that everyone is shaped by their own unique story of joy and pain, fear and hope. This practice is about intentionally softening our gaze. It's about asking, what might it be like to be them? It's about looking for the points of connection rather than the points of conflict. It is the brave and difficult work of keeping our hearts open in a world that often encourages us to slam them shut. So let's hold this intention in our hearts. Let's form a prayer for compassion. In a world that urges me to choose sides, help me to choose kindness. Help me to see the full, complex, and sacred humanity in those with whom I disagree. Remind me that behind every opinion is a person with their own fears, their own hopes, and their own hidden stories. When my heart hardens with judgment or anger, gently guide it back to a place of softness and understanding. May I be an instrument of peace, not conflict, a builder of bridges, not walls. May my words and my presence be a source of healing in a fractured world. Let me remember that every act of compassion, no matter how small, sends a ripple of light into the world, and that this is the most powerful work I can do. That is the third pillar, a prayer for compassion. It is your bridge across the divides and the source of a profound and lasting peace that no argument can disturb. The fourth pillar, a prayer for gratitude. Our final pillar is the antidote to the invader of despair and cynicism. When we are constantly focused on what is broken in the world, it is easy to lose hope. It's easy to become cynical, to believe that nothing can change, and to overlook the immense and persistent beauty that still surrounds us. Despair is a heavy blanket that smothers our joy and our energy. Gratitude is the act of intentionally lifting that blanket. It is the practice of deliberately turning our attention to what is good, what is working, what is beautiful, and what is true. It is not about ignoring the problems of the world. It is about ensuring that we do not ignore its gifts. This practice retrains our brain. Our minds have a natural negativity bias. We are wired to notice threats and problems. Gratitude is the conscious act of rewiring ourselves to also notice the blessings. It is a simple practice with profound effects. It can shift our entire perspective from one of scarcity to one of abundance, from despair to a quiet, resilient hope. So let us hold this final, powerful intention. Let's form a prayer for gratitude. Even in a world filled with challenges, let me not lose sight of the enduring gifts. For the simple miracle of this breath in my lungs, for the warmth of the sun, for the gift of another day, I am grateful. For the kindness of a stranger, for the comfort of a friend, for the love that connects me to others, I am grateful. Help me to see the grace that is hidden in ordinary moments, and to find beauty not just in the grand, but in the small and the simple. May this gratitude be my anchor, keeping me grounded in hope when the tides of despair rise. And may the joy it brings me overflow, becoming a source of light for others. That is the fourth and final pillar, a prayer for gratitude. It is your daily bread, the nourishment for your soul that keeps hope alive, and the ultimate source of a deep and lasting joy. Our journey today has been a long and thoughtful one. We began with the whisper of a prophecy about a visitor from the stars, and we have ended here in the quiet sanctuary of our own hearts. And so we return one last time to the choice that Baba Vanga's legend presented, to serve or to perish. Perhaps now we can see it in its truest light. Perhaps the true meaning was always this: do we choose to serve our highest selves? Do we serve our innate capacity for clarity in the face of chaos, for courage in the face of fear, for compassion in the face of division, and for gratitude in the face of despair? Or do we allow our peace, our hope, and our shared humanity to perish? Do we let them be eroded by the noise and the fear of our age, until we have forgotten the resilient and beautiful spirit that lies at the core of who we are? This is the real trial. This is the real choice. It is not a singular event that will descend upon us from the heavens. It is a choice we are presented with every single day, in 100 small and quiet ways. It's the choice we make in how we start our morning, what we give our attention to, how we speak to our neighbors, and how we speak to ourselves. The most powerful prophecy, you see, is not one that is written about us, but one that is written by us. It is written with every thought we choose to nurture and every action we choose to take. It is written in the moments we choose to turn off the shouting on the screen and listen to the stillness within. It is written when we choose to reach out with an open hand instead of a clenched fist. It is written when we pause, even for just a moment, to notice a sunset and feel a sense of gratitude. You don't need a mystic to tell you your future. You are the prophet of your own life. You are the author of your own peace. The power to create a sanctuary has been inside you all along. Our journey together today has been a long and thoughtful one, and if you are still listening to my voice at this very moment, I would be deeply honored. If you are still listening, please help me comment number 1 below so that I know that there are still friends accompanying me throughout this journey. Your presence is the greatest encouragement for me to continue telling the final part and the other stories that are waiting to be explored. Thank you for sharing this time with me. Be well.